I was always a Nintendo boy, even when Sega was aggressively vying for my attention with its more maturely marketed system. I couldn't really stay away from Nintendo's lineup of amazing games like Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and Mario. However, there was one game in the Super Nintendo lineup that made my defection from Nintendo inevitable: Final Fantasy VI. Or, as we called it at the time, Final Fantasy III. I was introduced to Square's JRPG franchise one day in Blockbuster Video. I happened to see that weird stop-motion commercial featuring a gruff-voiced Moogle, and for some reason, that marketing worked on me. So I picked it up, and that changed everything. It elevated what I thought video games could be in terms of story, gameplay, and music. As a result, I wanted to consume everything that Square made. When the PlayStation came out, my cousins got it, and I thought it was interesting. They had a demo disc with Battle Arena to Shinden and Jumping Flash. While these certainly impressed me visually for what the system was capable of at the time, I'll admit the gameplay didn't knock my socks off. So I was content waiting for the Super Nintendo successor, the Nintendo Ultra 64. Not only that, this little screenshot from Nintendo Power showing Final Fantasy VI characters rendered on a 64-bit platform gave me hope that Square would support the Nintendo platform. And on Christmas morning of 1996, I got the Nintendo 64 and happily played Mario 64, Wave Race 64, and many others. But soon, I noticed there was lots of sports titles, racing games, action games, but no role-playing games. Quest 64 came out a few years later and I rented that, but that was a huge disappointment. And so was the fact that there were no role-playing games, as I had just gotten into JRPGs a couple years ago on the Super Nintendo. So this whole genre evaporated as soon as I got into it. At this point, I had taken my eye off the PlayStation ball, and I didn't even notice that Square had jumped ship to greener pastures at Sony because they wanted to utilize their CD technology and video playback to tell their stories. It would all make sense to me when I saw this commercial for Final Fantasy VII.
Beyond the edge of reality lies a story of ultimate conquest, a story of war and friendship, a story of a love that can never be, and a hatred that always was. And now, the most anticipated epic adventure of the year will never come to a theater near you. Final Fantasy VII.
PlayStation.
Oh my god. And here I was stuck with Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and I was now jealous of my cousin's Jumping Flash machine. I envied it. Here's the thing. We just got the Nintendo 64, and I didn't really have a good argument to justify getting a new console under a year later, but I was obsessed with Final Fantasy VII. My birthday rolled around in September of 1997, and my sister, who was much older than me and basically an adult at this point, brought me into Sears during a trip to the mall and said, "Hey, I'll be busy for your birthday. I have some Sears points on my credit card. Why don't you pick out a game?" And there I saw the new release section, and there was Final Fantasy VII. In a fevered state, I just pointed to that jewel case with the white artwork on the front, knowing full well I had no way to play it. I just irrationally needed it. So I came home with it and just stared at the manual for like a whole month. My mother was collecting laundry out of my room, and she noticed this PlayStation game sitting there, and she was confused. She was like, "Did you get this game even though you have no way to play it?" And I was embarrassed. I told her how I didn't really want to ask for a new system, but I had to have the game. She understood. And for Christmas of 1997, a Sony PlayStation showed up under the Christmas tree, and I was off to the races. I gobbled up every Square release. Final Fantasy Tactics. Then I discovered Capcom was over at Sony as well, so I got into Resident Evil 1 and 2, and Mega Man X4, which now had cartoons in it.
What am I fighting for?
Not that I hated Nintendo 64, no, but it felt like I only got half a system. Amazing platformers, racers, shooters, and sports games, but then I had to go to the PlayStation for more cerebral experiences like JRPGs, survival horror, and 2D platformers with excellent hand-drawn animation. I never saw it as a rivalry between the two systems. It was more of a partnership. They complemented each other perfectly.
Next! Ooh, scary. Next! Next! Next!
Final Fantasy III. Do you have what it takes? Final Fantasy III from Squaresoft.
Next!